You want to learn about dark marketing? I'll tell you about dark marketing. In fact, I wrote the book on dark marketing. It's called Black Ops Advertising. I'm Professor Einstein. I'm a former TV and advertising executive turned marketing critic. The reason why I called the book Black Ops Advertising is because the way that marketing works is that it's militaristic. And we talk about strategy and objectives and targets in the same way that the military has become black ops, so has advertising. And the reason why it has become so stealth, and in fact, dark marketing is called stealth marketing, is because nobody wants to engage with it. We have decided we don't want to see advertising. And everything that has happened over time with the media has been about allowing us to escape watching ads. The advertising has to become more and more and more stealth. This began, one could say, with DVRs. With the ability to be able to skip advertising with the DVR, more and more companies began putting the advertising into the content. So that was product placement. And so we began to see more and more shows with an entire storyline being about Oreos or being about hand cream or even movies like the Lego movie. Then, as you get into digital, what begins to happen is you have native advertising and branded content. The idea of native ads is nothing new. In fact, David Ogilvy, the founder of Ogilvy and Mather, which is one of the major advertising agencies, said this: there is no reason for advertisements to look like advertisements. If you make them look like editorial pages, you will attract 50% more readers. And while even hiding the idea of ads is not new, how they're hidden has fundamentally changed when you talk about the digital space. So first thing we have is native ads. Native ads are ads that are made to look indigenous to the place where they appear. So an ad like this will appear on a place like Facebook. And what you see is that it says sponsored under the name of the advertiser. But we've been trained not to look under there, and it's very ghosted back. And so we have a tendency to scroll right past it. And it also appears on this app where it says sponsored on the bottom. And I think at this point, most people know to look for that. Another kind of native advertising is customized native advertising. And that's what appears in the vast majority of newspapers and other online publications. And so this is an example of the content that is created by a studio inside the New York Times. And it's not just the New York Times, the Washington Post has it, Forbes have it, they all have it. The other kind of advertising is branded content. And this tends to be longer form video content that is paid for by the advertiser. And so if you want to go to a website like Courageous, the advertising arm of what used to be Ted Turner, his boat. He used to have a boat called Courageous. So that's part of Warner Brothers now, right? So this is their creative arm. So it's all these people who used to create advertising, used to create television, are creating content that is actually paid for by advertisers. But it very much looks like the kind of content you want to engage with on a day-to-day basis. So what happens when you introduce influencers into the mix? And so what people are calling dark marketing now is simply taking what has been stealth marketing over time and putting it into an influencer frame. Before I get into that, let me first say subliminal advertising, it's not real. It's not a thing. It doesn't exist. Stop talking about it. What does exist is the persuasive knowledge theory. In the model, there's the target, right, consumer, the agent, the company who's selling, and the sales pitch. Great, very straightforward, easy peasy. How you respond to that sales pitch, though, is based on who the agent is, right, who's selling it, and in this case on here, it might be an influencer. Whether or not you know that it is a sponsored message, and whether or not you want to buy the product. Well, you don't have to know all three of those things. But if you're missing information on one of the other ones, you lean more heavily on the other two. So for instance, if you don't know that the communication is sponsored, you're going to lean more heavily on the fact of, is this something I want to buy? And is it being communicated by somebody I trust? The big problem for us engaging with this kind of content is that in the traditional advertising model, we could tell when we were looking at an ad. The show would end, we would see the change in the semiotics of the commercial, and we would understand that we were looking at a piece of content where someone was trying to sell us something. That's no longer the case in the digital space. The other thing that happens is we're engaging with this so quickly. We're looking at it on our phone, where we're less likely to see that something has been labeled as commercial content, and we're breezing by it more quickly. Also, we have the issue of parasocial relationships here. The idea that people begin to think that they really know somebody who they literally hold in their hand on a day-to-day basis. Influencers are not your friends. Influencers are about influencing you, whether to buy a product or whether to buy an idea. And so you need to be very clear about whether they are selling you something that you want to buy. That's dark marketing. That's black ops advertising. And before somebody complains that I'm trying to sell you the book, this book is 10 years old. Go find it at your local library. I talk about this stuff all the time. Come back and see me. I'm not trying to sell you anything.